Research indicates that Thomas Kirk and Mary Kirk Geiger were siblings. Their parents were likely Joseph and Sarah Kirk of Berkeley County, Virginia. Joseph Kirk can be traced to that area in 1773 when he leased a 100-acre farm. Where did the Kirk family come from? What were the Kirk's ancestral origins? While much of the genealogy paper trail has been lost to the ravages of time, there are some clues that suggest Thomas Kirk and his sister Mary Kirk Geiger were of Irish descent. Mary's grandson was straightforward, writing in a family history that she was of Irish descent, while Thomas's children each gave their father's birth location as U.S.-based and Virginia in U.S. federal census enumerations. There was, however, one outlier. In 1880, his daughter Jane went rogue and indicated her father was born in Ireland, contradicting her U.S.-born response in the 1870 census. What should we make of Jane's response? Was she simply indicating that Thomas was of Irish descent? Most likely, Jane's Ireland response hinted at her father's ancestral origins, and not his actual birth location. As author and family historian Barry McCain noted, Scots-Irish in colonial America often described their ethnicity as simply Irish. Could we find more definitive evidence to help us confirm an Irish origin for the Kirks? Setting aside the paper trail, we found answers in DNA. Genetic genealogy, with a focus on paternal line Y DNA, would prove key to verifying the Irish origins for the Kirks. Y DNA is the male sex chromosome. It is inherited only by men from their fathers and travels down a direct male line in tandem with the surname. Y-DNA's link with the surname makes it an important tool for exploring the ancestral origins of the Kirks. Thomas Kirk had 7 sons who lived to adulthood. Each of those sons had sons of their own. A direct male descendant of each son was located and agreed to take a Y-DNA test with family tree DNA. Incidentally, we also found and tested a direct male descendant of Vachel Kirk, who married Rachel Hall and lived in Butler County, Ohio. This Vachel may be a brother or cousin to Thomas Kirk. The initial Y-DNA test results, and later the more comprehensive Big Y DNA test, helped us identify the unique genetic signature associated with our Kirk surname, or what's commonly referred to as a terminal SNP, or haplogroup. A haplogroup is a genetic population group of people who share a common ancestor on the patriline. Family Tree DNA, the Y-DNA testing company, has currently identified Thomas Kirk's unique haplogroup as RBY30547. This is genetic shorthand for the Y-DNA shared by each of the living direct line Kirk men. Think of it as a unique phone number that only rings up Thomas Kirk and his closely related male relatives. If we were to travel back in time and test the Y-DNA of Thomas Kirk and his close relative Vachel, it would match this haplogroup. The Y-DNA research project made a surprising discovery that helped pinpoint the Kirk's ancestral origins. It found that the Kirkmen shared a remarkably close genetic match with 2 men from Wisconsin. These 2 men, however, were not Kirks. Their last name was Quirk. The 2 Quirk men had a genealogy paper trail that traced their paternal ancestry to the south of Ireland in Munster province. The Quirk and Kirk Y-DNA haplogroups are very closely related to each other on the Y chromosome phylogenetic tree. This means that at one time in history, the Kirks shared a common male ancestor with the Quirks. After careful analysis of the data, a group administrator specializing in the study of Southern Irish Y-DNA concluded, "This is just what you were looking for. The results cement the relationship between your Kirks and the Quirks." Another researcher noted that both the Quirk and Kirk Y-DNA haplogroups are Southern Irish in origin. She added that the haplogroups are considered to be strongly the origin of the Egonach dynasty, with great numbers of our Y-DNA group members in this sub-branch having Egonach surnames. In other words, the Y-DNA for the Quirk and Kirk men was widely prevalent in Southern Ireland, suggesting it was the genetic homeland. But who were the Egonach? According to Wikipedia, the Egonachta were an Irish dynasty based near Cashel that ruled Southern Ireland from the 6th to the 10th centuries. This is now the area of the province of Munster. A third Y-DNA researcher weighed in. O'Quirk, by the way, is a Munster Egonach Cashel name, and a Munster origin of your family is highly likely. Bottom line, Y-DNA testing confirmed that our Kirks were of Irish descent and revealed that the Kirk male ancestors were likely originally Quirks, or O'Quirk in Irish, and that they lived for generations in Ireland's Munster province near the town of Cashel. Returning to the genealogy, there was another fragile clue regarding Thomas's ancestral origins. It comes from a snippet of family lore. A third great-grandson of Thomas, through Thomas's youngest son Hugh Kirk, shared his family's understanding of the Kirk's migration history. I was told the following. The family originated in Ireland. 4 or 5 brothers left in the potato famine for Scotland. They changed their name to Kirk, a very common name, and immigrated to America. I have no dates for any of this. A lot of history was packed into those few short lines. Thomas was not the immigrant ancestor. We know he was born in Virginia in 1778 and that he died in Ohio in 1846. He was not in Ireland during the Great Famine of 1845 to 1852. Perhaps, if there is any truth to the lore, the 4 or 5 brothers leaving Ireland in a potato famine for Scotland were Thomas's father and uncles, or maybe even grandfather and great-uncles, and the famine was an earlier event, maybe the Irish famine of 1740 to 41, known as the Year of Slaughter. That catastrophe, according to Wikipedia, is estimated to have killed between 13 and 20% of the 1740 population of 2.4 million people, which was a proportionately greater loss than during the Great Famine of 1845 to 52. Most curious was that the lore said the family purportedly changed their surname from something Irish to Kirk in Scotland. Fusing the lore and genetic history together, maybe the narrative of the Kirk ancestral origins and migration was something like this. The family were O'Quirks that left Munster in Southern Ireland, maybe fleeing the 1740 to 41 famine, for opportunity and relief in Scotland. The O'Quirk surname was already phonetically pronounced Kirk, so the spelling was anglicized during the Scottish stopover before the family sailed into a port in the American colonies. Regardless of the circumstances of their migration to America, the genealogy paper trail and family lore support the genetic evidence that the Kirks are closely related to the Quirks and that their ancestral origins were indeed in Southern Ireland. Where does our research go now? To conclude this Y-DNA project, there is one final task: testing a male Quirk descendant from the Cashel area. Finding a male Quirk from the Cashel area of Ireland who is willing to take a Y-DNA test will firmly anchor the Kirk family history in the Emerald Isle and verify our research. It will also connect us with modern-day cousins who may hold more insights about our shared family history. The search for a candidate willing to test is on. We just need a little luck of the Irish to find our man.